Hi guys. In today's video, we are going to discuss exactly how you have been and how to consciously and deliberately bend reality with your mind. Welcome to Cultivating Consciousness. My name is Denise. I am a mindset manifestation coach, and if you'd like to work with me, there's a link in the description below. I want to say thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing and helping me grow my channel. So, when we talk about bending reality, the first thing that I want to point out is while that is a phrase we use, we're actually not bending reality. You're not bending, changing, or causing reality to conform to you. And in fact, it's rather that you are becoming aware of a different reality that eternally exists along with the one you've been perceiving and every other possible, infinite, imaginal reality that exists. So when our reality outside of us appears to change, what's actually happening is our state of consciousness is changing, and we're simply focusing on and perceiving a reality that has eternally existed, like I said, side by side, right with the other one. So, your reality right now is a perfect reflection of the state of consciousness that you are embodying. So, in other words, who you decided you are, who you continue to say you're being, what you believe is possible and likely for you, what you expect emotionally and consciously to show up in your life, the subconscious makeup of who you are, your identity, is what is the cause of your entire 3D experience, including everyone else involved and every circumstance that's happening. Okay. So, in other words, you are the one and only source and cause of your reality. So, when we look at our reality and let's say we want something to be different, but it's not changing out there, what's the cause of that? Right? It's we're not shifting in awareness in our inner world. Now, with your 3D reality, even though you may be living in a 3D reality and experiencing it and seeing it, it's important to recognize that all of this actually only takes place in the mind. In other words, it's in awareness and through awareness that not only are we able to even perceive a 3D reality, being aware of it, but that's where we conclude what it means and decide what outcomes may be possible and assign meanings to things while it's happening out here. In other words, we're always living in here, right? Every relationship that you have with every person in your life is that relationship takes place in the mind. While there might be moments when you're physically with those people, you even when you're with someone physically, you're telling a story in here. You're coming to conclusions, you're having feelings, you're having opinions, you're assigning meanings, all in the mind. So when we want to change our reality and we notice that we haven't been, we want to look at where am I living in my inner world? Am I in my inner world? Am I living in a place that keeps supporting what's happening out here? Am I, experiencing something distasteful that I would prefer to experience something else, and instead of going to that place in my mind where I'm experiencing what I would prefer, am I dwelling on what just happened and complaining in my mind and even to other people, right? Like that's how we create reality. We agree with it through our responses to it. So it's that your state creates the experience or pushes out the experience. And then through observation, through assigning meanings, through your responses and your reactions, you validate that state and reinforce it. So, this is why it can also feel very challenging to start to shift into a new state of consciousness, is because you may have been, habitually reinforcing an identity that you don't prefer anymore just by seeing something happen and then going, oh, this happened. That must mean XYZ. That must mean I'm not enough. That must mean I can't have it, or whatever the story is, right? So, like I said, you really want to look at where you are living in imagination, because if you're living in imagination, in accordance with what you see out there, you are squandering your power. You are squandering it and giving it away, and you're going to find yourself in a place of repetition and patterns and cycling and feeling frustrated and getting exhausted and wanting it to change but not seeing anything change. All of that comes from the inability or inconsistency with living where you would prefer. So that little spot of, reality has reflected, and then you find yourself observing it and thus responding or reacting to it based on what you're observing and what meanings you're assigning it. It's in that little spot, that's the sweet spot, where you have the ability to start shifting that state, right? Now, it may not feel natural and it may not feel authentic to who you are, but if you start rehearsing and practicing to assume differently about what you're seeing, even though what you're seeing hasn't changed, and allowing yourself to thus respond differently and assume different outcomes, as you continue to practice that, you'll stop reinforcing that old identity, and you'll begin to reinforce a new identity that says, maybe I can have this. Maybe I am good enough for this. Right? And so you have all that power in that quick little place, or that little moment of, what meaning am I assigning here? What outcome am I assuming will happen because of this? How am I thinking about this thing? How am I focusing on it? How am I being aware of it? From what identity am I being aware of it? And like I said, in deliberately practicing to think as if everything's working out in your favor, you will assign different meanings, you will create different outcomes, you will behave differently and have different responses and reactions. And that's how you shift your identity. That's how you make reality bend. Because what you're actually doing is you're focusing on a reality where you already have what you want. You're focusing on the reality where you already are the person who knew everything would work out for them. That version always exists within you eternally. So it's that part is so imperative. And this is what Neville talks about in his book or chapter, I think it's just a chapter, about law of reversibility, right? Now, I look at it as a cycle. State pushes out the reality, and we observe the reality and thus respond to the reality and reinforce the state. But it can go that way too. It can just be that, since your observation and response to reality is affected by your state, so can you affect your state by shifting your observation and your reactions and responses to reality. And so it's just about doing that. And that is how you live in the end. That's what living in the end is. It's not about specific techniques that make you feel specific feelings, because this whole process is going to be wildly different for everybody. In other words, how you're feeling, how you would describe it, with adjectives, like what you do and what it felt like for you and what the process was like. It's all going to be so vastly different. And when we approach it and try to, sort of reverse engineer, as they say, and, oh, this person did this thing and it made them feel that way, and then their manifestation came. That's not how we want to get there. That's not it. It's really about you choosing, whether it's in a now moment going all in, or just choosing in several now moments a little bit more each time until it becomes natural and you find yourself all in. Either is fine. You choosing to eventually abandon what's happening in the reflection and just not give it your attention, not give it your focus, not put your awareness on it, not dwell and repeat the story and tell everybody and call the news and talk about it, right? It's your choosing to say, oh, well, in here I have all the possibilities, and here I have all the outcomes, and here I have all the circumstances. So that one showed up in 3D reality. Okay, well, I don't have to dwell there. I don't have to continue to put life into that. And if I do, that's going to continue to show up for me. So I withdraw my awareness and my attention from that. And I go in here and I put all my attention and all my awareness on what I would have preferred to happen. And you just do that. You do that and you be graceful with yourself. You have grace. You don't be graceful. Good Lord. You give yourself grace and you give yourself compassion and you understand that it might be a process, right? If I, years ago, months ago, whatever ago, long time ago, and it's been different with different things that I've created in my life, but with any of them, if I had decided that since I woke up in anxiety today, that means I'll never have what I want and I'm just going to stop, then I wouldn't be where I am. Right. But instead, what I did was I said, okay, so I woke up with anxiety today. And when I caught it, I did the best I could to say, how can I find relief or what would relief feel like? Or what if I already had it? And eventually that turned into, as soon as I woke up, I was saying the sentence, if I woke up and I already had it, what would I do right now? Like, what would my day look like? And that eventually turned into waking up and just automatically going into gratitude effortlessly with that because it became who I was, right? So if you find yourself waking up, whatever, if you find yourself stuck or experiencing what you would call lack or experiencing sadness or frustration or anxiety or that, pit in your stomach where you just don't think you're good enough, like that doesn't mean that that's permanent. And that doesn't mean that that's like so many people look at that and then they say, it's not going to be natural for me. I can't do it because they expect it to be natural right away. And this is something that I noticed through parenting is that when you have a child that's good at something or people are telling that child how clever they are or how creative they are or how whatever they are, then that first thing that they're introduced to that they're not naturally good at, they want to give up on and they just want to say, forget it. I can't do it because I'm never going to get there. But when you think about the majority of us, we have to practice things to get good at them, right? Sure, there's prodigies, but typically if you want to play an instrument or get better at art or photography or writing or public speaking, it's something you practice and you get better at over time. Same thing with consciously creating your reality, becoming a new identity, shifting into the version of you that's already fulfilled. You may have to practice it, and that's okay. The fact that you have to practice it does not mean you're not going to get there. In fact, it just means that you're going to be so conscious and so deliberate, and you're going to really understand your power and how you can shift that it will look like you're bending reality. Because things will change before your eyes. People will start to say a sentence and another one will come out. Like, this is conscious creation. So of course we want to do it consciously, right? We want to have that experience of knowing that, oh, I'm learning to think this way. I'm learning to expand. I'm learning to perceive something that is unseen with my physical eyes. I'm learning to perceive it until I can see it with my physical eyes. How amazing is that? That's how powerful we are. We can take anything that is unseen, and if we focus on it deliberately enough, or, and I don't like to use the word enough, but when we get fed up enough with what had been happening or what we had been seeing, and we do finally choose to go all in, and we are deliberate and persistent and consistent in what we're putting our focus and attention on. And then you get to watch that unfold and you know that there was no other way for that to show up. I did that. I caused a new reality. I put myself into a reality where this thing is mine now, right? Like that's amazing to get to do that. So while quantum shifting is awesome and powerful and fun, but also so is the process, so is the unfolding, so is watching yourself expand and evolve and develop and become, right? Especially like when I can sit here and say, I don't wake up with anxiety anymore. I woke up with almost debilitating anxiety for years of my life. Years. And then, sadness and why isn't it here? And why don't I have it? Why did it leave? Why is it gone? Whatever it was. And now I wake up and I'm immediately like, I sleep with the curtains open so that I can see, if it's sunny, the trees and the sunshine and I just immediately look out my window and I'm grateful. Like, and that's just natural. But that, again, like I practiced that version. I practiced it until it became natural. So that's how you do it. Like, we can talk about specific techniques, and if you want to sign up with coaching and work with me, I'm happy to hear the specifics of your story and give you, sort of like a map or a blueprint of thoughts you can practice and things you can think if it really feels that far out for you. But you can also decide to, okay, whatever it is I'm desiring, let's, for 24 hours, create that day, a 24-hour period, not 24, from wake till sleep, of the version of me that already had that. And then start itemizing what that version is doing, what they're saying, what they're thinking, what they're experiencing, what they're emotionally anticipating, where they're living, right? Their vibration, their makeup, who is that version? And then you deliberately practice putting awareness on that. And you'll watch yourself shift more and more every day, every moment. It'll happen. And then suddenly you'll go, oh, shoot, that's just who I am now. Look what I did. It's who I am now. Awesome. So there's my video. I will see you all next week. Bye.